A devoted and hardworking mother, and had two beautiful and bright children, and of course, a promise for a better life in America, were tragically taken away in one night. In summer of 2007, the Kuria's family was living what many would consider the American dream. You know, safety, good education, and of course, opportunities. Jane Kuria, a qualified nurse from Kenya, had sacrificed everything in her life to make sure that her children would have a better future. What they did not know is that behind the quiet walls of their suburban home in Spring Powder, Georgia, a terrible crime would rob what they considered their forever dream. What happened inside that house remains one of the most haunting and unresolved crimes in recent Georgia history. And today, we take you through the tragic, mysterious, and still unanswered story of the Kuria family murders, a case that continues to echo through the years, leaving behind questions, grief, and a desperate search for justice. This is the chilling story of the Kuria's family, the controversies that surround the case, and an ending that left the case as unresolved. Jane Kuria, a dedicated mother and nurse, immigrated from Kenya to the United States in the year 2001 after the death of her husband. She was born in the year 1960. She loved books and very passionate and dedicated towards education. She enrolled to a local teachers' college after high school to pursue teaching. She was also an outstanding ambassador for human rights and gender equality. To be very specific, she practically educated the community against practicing female genital mutilation, FGM. She moved bravely towards educating the community on the dangerous and primitive gender practices and that they should be stopped. And this move was not received so positively by everyone in the community. While in college, Jane met Kuria and they deeply fell in love. After her graduation in the year 1987, the two got married and settled in Nairobi City. 1 year into their marriage, they would welcome their first fruit, a baby girl born in the year 1988. They named her Isabella Kuria. In 1991, a second child was born, another daughter, Annabelle Kuria. 9 years later, the couple would welcome their third baby, and this time it's a boy. They named him Jeremy Kuria. Unfortunately, in the year 2001, when Jeremy was only 1 year old, their father, that is Mr. Kuria, died after suffering from pneumonia. Remember, at this point, Jane is still preaching the gospel against FGM and gender equality. And so, now with her pillar or the beacon gone, she became an easy target. Remember that there are people in her community who do not like her for that reason. And so, shortly after the husband died, their family home was torched under mysterious conditions. Seeking a safer life for herself and the children, Jane looked for a USA visa and later relocated there the same year, 2001. First, she was hosted in an asylum because she still feared that someone was still after her and the children. Later, after some calm, she settled in Boston, Massachusetts. In the year 2002, she moved to Powder Spring, a suburban area northwest of Atlanta, Georgia. There, she and her children began to rebuild their lives. Life was comfortable around there. She had several family members living in the area. Additionally, Spring Powder was by then having a very big number of Kenyan people occupying the area. This made her feel comfortable, like she was at home. They took a 3-bedroom house in Country Cove. She began to build her life, which was both challenging but also presented opportunities. She worked two jobs to keep her family afloat. She worked as a nursing aide at a local hospital for night shifts, and during the day, she worked as a caregiver to the elderly and physically decapacitated. This way, she ensured that her kids had a good life and enrolled to good schools for quality education. This was a sign of a brighter future. Her life revolved around her kids and, of course, her Christian faith. The family members attended a local spring powder church every Sunday. Jane was a leader for the Bible study group there. Her kids were known to be polite and well-mannered due to the moral values she had instilled in them. Neighbors loved her. They described her as kind and welcoming, especially with the brilliant smile she shared always. By 2007, Jane had established her life in the community, and her children were already living a perfect life. Her eldest daughter Isabella was attending college, pursuing nursing. She also attended voluntary sessions at a local clinic. Annabelle, who was 16 years, was in high school. She was a little introverted, but still, she had her life well planned and put in place. She wanted to become a human rights lawyer in the future. During free times, she did babysitting jobs in the area as well as volunteering at the local church. Her youngest son, Jeremy, was just 7 years old. He was in elementary school. He loved playing football with his friends. The sisters played their roles very well, the big sisters. They could drop him to and pick him from school. They helped little Jeremy with homework. You can only imagine what a darling he was to them, being the last born and the only brother. They were a close-knit family, active in their church and well loved by those around them. The mother was well dedicated and the kids made her proud. She ensured that they attended church every Sunday without missing. Their life was happy, normal, and quiet. They had no idea that, at the end of summer 2007, tragedy would strike their family in the greatest form of evil. On July 30th, 2007, it's a Monday, Pauline Dande, together with her son Peter Dande, decided to go visit Jane. Pauline happens to be Jane's sister-in-law. After they got to Jane's house, of course, she was safe and sound. The two women did some cooking together. They shared some stories and had some catching up to do. The two boys, that is Jeremy and Peter, stayed out the whole evening playing together. After staying there for a few hours, Pauline decided that it was time she went back to her house. And of course, she wanted to take her son with her. But for Peter, he felt different. He wanted to stay at Jane's house at least for that evening so that he could play with his cousin even the following day. And of course, after some begging, Pauline agreed, and so she went back home alone, leaving her son behind. The following morning, it's a Tuesday, 31st of July 2007. The first thing that Pauline did after waking up was calling Jane. Of course, she wanted to check how her son was doing. Unfortunately, Jane did not pick the call. At first, Pauline did not get worried. She assumed that maybe Jane was busy with house chores or maybe she had gone to run some errands. On the 1st of August 2007, it's a Wednesday. Again, Pauline wakes up in the morning and the first thing she does is to call Jane. Even this time round, after calling her several times, Jane is not picking the calls. This becomes quite alarming for Pauline, and so she decided that it's time she went to check what was happening with Jane. In fact, Pauline did not go alone. She took with her Diana Minor, who happens to be Jane's niece. The two of them went together. Outside the house, they found Jane's and Isabella's cars still parked there. The back door was wide open. This was strikingly unusual for her. She was very keen with keeping the doors locked. They felt fear strike through their system. as they walked into the house with mixed feelings. Inside the home, Pauline's eyes were caught by a pool of blood in the living room. Fear struck them both. Caught in shock, Pauline remained frozen as she stared at the pool of blood. Diana rushed out of the house to call the police. A few minutes later, the authorities arrived. Near the entrance door, they discovered the lifeless body of the oldest daughter, Isabella. It appeared that she had been beaten up and bludgeoned several times. She had really struggled during the attack, but no signs of intimate assault were present. The crime scene was gruesome, with signs of violent struggle. Jane was found in the kitchen, dead. It showed that she had been attacked with a blunt object. She bore multiple injuries that also indicated self-defense, though she had finally lost to the villain. Annabelle was in the bedroom with the same injuries as her sister and mom. Blood trails on the floor showed that she had tried to flee from the attacker, but unfortunately, they overpowered her. Her son Jeremy and his cousin Peter were found unconscious but alive. However, they suffered from ruthless head injuries. They were quickly airlifted to the hospital, and fortunately, they survived, though they went into coma. The investigations began immediately. Investigators described the crime as one of the most brutal they had encountered. The victims had been bludgeoned with a long forked object, most likely like a crowbar. Unfortunately, the weapon was never found at the crime scene. There were no signs of forced entry, leading authorities to believe that the killer may have been someone the family knew. The journey was very difficult for the detectives since there was no weapon left at the scene. Additionally, no DNA samples were traced, not even fingerprints, meaning that most likely the villain wore some gloves. The neighbors said that none of them had heard any noise or commotions in the house. The evening was quiet and normal, like any other in the previous night. For a few days, the detectives tried to dig deeper at the crime scene. They looked for DNA samples and fingerprints. Unfortunately, they could not find any apart from that of the family members. Out of this frustration, they did not have any other options apart from waiting for Peter and Jeremy to wake up from coma and maybe give a statement and try to remember what exactly happened that fateful evening. A week went by and Peter was the first to wake up. Unfortunately, he could not remember anything because he was suffering from trauma-induced memory loss. And the same case happened with Jeremy, who woke up a few days after Peter. And with him too, he could not remember what exactly happened because he was suffering from the same. Though he said that he heard the footsteps of the attacker coming to the bedroom, but after he got that first blow from the villain, he collapsed and could remember nothing else. Out of this, the investigating team had no other options apart from trying to piece together the events according to what they had discovered at the scene. So, these were more of controversial theories and not something that could be supported by any concrete evidence. From what they observed, the assailant must have entered through the front door just like a regular visitor. The dinner table was well set and assured that probably the attacker had shared something like a snack with the family. From the kitchen, that's where he attacked Jen, beat her up, and though she had tried to fight back, the villain overpowered her and killed her. Isabella, who was in the bedroom, heard her mother scream and so she ran downstairs. That's when she too was attacked and killed. Annabelle remained hidden in the bedroom, terrified with fear. The assailant dragged her from underneath the bed and killed her. Inside the boys' room, they are folded in fear. The villain got there and hit Jeremy first. Jeremy said that he remembered hearing the footsteps of the attacker approach, but remembered nothing else since he lost consciousness in the first blow. The assailant beat up the boys before fleeing, believing that they too were dead. Despite the detective's efforts to comb through the house, they did not find any traces of DNA or fingerprints, apart from that of the victims. This made the case even harder. They tried to unravel on what could have been the intention for the attacker. Was it a robbery gone wrong? Jane's purse was found on the floor with money missing and a few coins scattered on the floor. But depending on the fact that there was no fingerprints or murder weapon left at the crime scene, it showed that the crime was premeditated. It was planned meticulously, and the attacker came to that house only with an intention to kill. Days went by, and two suspects were connected to the case. A man who was named just as Patrick. He was Kenyan by origin, a member of the same church as Jane. He was married with 2 kids. The two, according to the detective's report, phone data records showed that Jane and Patrick had been calling constantly throughout the days. In July alone, they had made a total of 350 calls, meaning a minimum of 10 calls a day. What was suspicious enough was that Patrick never called Jane again. From that day, she and her family were attacked onwards. Funny enough, he had not tried to check with her, something he previously always did. It's as if he was aware that Jane would not pick the calls since she was already dead. On top of that, it came to light that he owed Jane $5,000. It was also being suspected that he had been pursuing Annabelle in a malicious way. The 16-year-old girl could sometimes babysit Patrick's children, but instead of paying her with cash, he instead took her to lunches and dinners. This suggested that he was interested in having an inappropriate relationship with the girl. Maybe the mother had discovered this, and so she confronted him, and out of this, Patrick eliminated Jane. Dear viewers, don't forget that this is just a theory and no evidence supported it. Note that Patrick used to work during the day, his wife at night, and so he said that he stayed at home. About the money he owed Jane, he admitted to it, but however said that Jane had never asked for her money back. So, the theory could not build a case against Patrick since no evidence linked him to the crime. The second person who was a suspect was a lady called Elizabeth. She too went to the same church as Jane. Right after Jane died, she had tried to get custody of Jeremy in an illegal way. She claimed that Jane would have wanted her to keep Jeremy. However, during the few days she stayed with the boy, it was said that she was too hard on Jeremy and even attempted to isolate him from everyone else. Elizabeth had even started selling Jane's assets after the death. Unfortunately, this wasn't proof enough that Elizabeth was responsible for the killings, so no one was officially arrested or held accountable. The investigators had previously said that, depending on the nature of the attack, there was a great likelihood that whoever killed the three did it as a crime of passion. But still, no evidence could prove that, since no DNA or fingerprints were found at the crime scene. So, the lead to the case hit rock bottom. It's almost 18 years now, and no one has ever been held accountable. Despite extensive investigations, including interviews with potential suspects and analysis of phone records, no one was ever charged. The case grew cold, leaving many questions unanswered. Family members and the community are still grappled in burning questions. The loss of Jane, Isabella, and Annabelle were devastating, and the uncertainty surrounding their deaths adds to the pain. Jeremy, now an adult, continues to live with the trauma of that night. Though he had no memory of the events, the emotional scars remain. He has expressed a desire for answers and justice for his family, but the only detail he remembers about the event is that the villain was wearing a shirt with African design prints. Over these years, the case has been revisited by various media outlets, including Investigation Discoveries, still a mystery series in hope of uncovering new leads. 17 years later, the murders of Jane Kuria and her daughters remain unsolved. If you have any information that could help bring justice to this family, please contact the Powder Springs Police Department. Let us remember Jane, Isabella, and Annabelle, not just as victims, but as individuals who sought a better life and whose lives were tragically cut short. May their story inspire us to seek justice and to never forge. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you'd like to support our team, please do so by liking and subscribing. And if you have an idea of a crime story that you would like our team to cover, please let us know down there in the comment section. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'm seeing you in the next one.